I love having fun nights out in town. I love a crisp summer night where I put on the cutest outfit, I get my nails done, I comb or pick out my hair and step out into the world. There is this bubbly, excited feeling as I get ready to see my friends, or sometimes there is that feeling of dread as I begrudgingly go out because I made plans I don't want to exactly cancel. Regardless of how I feel, the general vibe is that my time out can differ, and those experiences differ largely because of my own personal experiences, as well as where I go and who I am. Do you, and I mean you, love intimacy of say, a wine bar on a quiet, cold night where you are on a date with someone you care about? Or maybe you don't want to drink, but still want to go out, so you spend time with your friends at a cafe or maybe to see a special show. Whatever the case may be, these third spaces are vital to our growth and are super important for us being connected to our community. And I think it's especially the case for queer third spaces. And queer third spaces have been super integral for my life and much of my queer happenings and, well, development. So, who would have guessed that there is a tabletop role playing game that invites you to tell the story of a queer bar or a cafe and the people who are part of it? Therefore, in this video, we'll be discussing what is Viva La Queer Bar. We will break down what the game is about, its mechanics, as well as how, as a story game, it enables the players to reflect on their experiences in proximity to and surrounding queer third spaces. So, join me as we talk about Viva La Queer Bar. And grab your fanny pack, order your favorite beverage, and don't forget to take out cash for the lovely drag show tonight, because we are exploring and playing Viva La Queer Bar. Viva La Queer Bar is a slice of life storytelling game for 2 to 6 players and without the need for a game master. In this game, you explore the experiences, both positive and negative, of being part of the queer community by collaboratively sharing experiences about a queer establishment you as a party are creating. The best part is that the game can be played in any setting. It can be a typical high fantasy in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. It can be a primitive Lost World cafe, a pulpy sapphic bar for a crime drama game, or simply a modern day dive bar in a busy city. The possibilities are endless due to the game's flexibility. Logistically, the game was released back in July of 2023 and was published by Plot Bunny Games. The game designers were Andrea and Sandra Dahlhoff, with the cover illustration by Hanna van den Hoeven. The game uses the Descended from the Queen's story game, aka the role-playing game uses the SRD from the For the Queen game. Finally, the game comes out to about 32 pages. The first 11 pages are set up, while pages 12 and onward are an array of questions separated by playing card type. To play the game, you will need 2 to 6 players, the game itself, 1 regular deck of playing cards, without the Joker, and as well there'll be an online version of a standard deck of cards as shown here, but also in the description box. 1 to 4 hours of playtime, and something to take notes on. And one thing to note while you're at it, plenty of you are not subscribed and or probably haven't liked the video and or shared it, so if you can, feel free to like and subscribe since that does greatly help my channel, and also, hey, you're supporting a queer creator who's creating queer content. Why not? The game is a collaborative experience, and that starts with understanding instructions. You will all take turns reading one section of the following sections in the game. There's the introduction. This tells you what the game is and the core ethos of the game. Setup. This section is about the setup and rough details of what this queer space will look like. What's the genre the bar is set in, and other broad questions about the world will be answered through setup. Tone. Do you want a more lighthearted game or want to explore more darker themes? Consent and safety. This introduces the potential safety tools you can use in the game. This can include X-Card and script change. Safety tools are vital to this game because the game deals with topics that are deeply relevant for loads of queer and trans folks across the community. So this section, I think I would highly recommend you read through and or do your own research, especially in terms of safety tools. How to play. This talks about drawing cards and answering questions, making decisions, adapting or passing on questions, and just general tips on how to play the game. Section 6 is about developing your characters in the bar and naming the queer bar. 7 is the final question, which I will not be spoiling, and 8 is where you begin your story, aka you start playing. Once you've read out those rules, you get to playing. You draw a card from the deck of cards and look up the question from pages 12 to 19. You read those questions aloud to the other players, interpret them given your tone and setting, and answer if you would like. Other players can make suggestions and adapt the question to meet the needs of the players at the table. Ultimately, the answer you come up with is agreed upon by everyone as you navigate the several questions that exist within the game. For example, let's say I draw a 7 of hearts. This question reads, you admire a person on the Queer Bar team. What impresses you most about them? You answer this question and expand on it in the context of the bar you all are creating. Maybe the person you admire has a gothic style to them, or maybe they are a cute pup who works the weekday shift. The person could be a doll with a lead of fashion sense who just loves the way you giggle at her jokes. In all of these examples, there's some heart, and that heart comes from somewhere personal for me. I can recall moments from my time being in queer spaces and either seeing this or knowing friends in these moments. It is deeply cathartic to share this in a fictional format if you're given the opportunity to do so, and Viva La Queer Bar does that through its questions and how it layers its content. I think what makes Viva La Queer Bar so brilliant is how it is a wonderful representation of what queer spaces can be. Andrea has a collection of essays later on in the game explaining what a queer bar is, their history, how queer bars have changed over the years, as well as the diverse experiences that come with being a queer bar or third space. The game's choice to add additional historical context really hits home how important spaces for queer and trans spaces have been for the community. That a queer bar or cafe, open quote, were not just places of leisure and entertainment, but were places of mutual support and political resistance against oppression and persecution. Andrea's essays cover a range of topics that includes how queer spaces like bars and cafes were places to create chosen family and are a place of intergenerational learning. These spaces were used also for sex education, especially during the AIDS crisis in the 1980s. The third space can also be used as a place of organizing and resistance. The essay also acknowledges how these queer and trans spaces aren't all homogenous. There was intergroup fighting, groups were at odds with each other. Queer and trans individuals, specifically gay men and lesbians, historically, especially those who've already quote-unquote earned their rights or perform masculine or feminine enough, were at odds with, say, the more radical or the more left-leaning organizations or group members. Or even just other group members such as queer and specifically transgender members historically. Finally, there's also a section that actively acknowledges how constant discrimination and the sexual landscape of said spaces may have led to excessive drug and alcohol usage, which I do appreciate. This game has an opportunity then to talk about not only these historical experiences, but contemporary ones as well as your personal feelings on queer and transgender third spaces. For example, do you want to discuss LGBTQ youth and how they access third spaces, and how third spaces can be a positive and affirming space for their identity? The game could touch on how, this youth affirming space has a positive impact on mental health. And Good Thing Trevor Project specifies that these spaces have had 35% reduced odds of reporting S attempts in the past year. Maybe you want to pay homage to spaces like bookstores. Queer independent bookstores are important for the community, not only as places to read, but as spaces to learn about queer and transgender history and be a community without the pressure of alcohol usually. Do you see the conversation of queer third spaces as an opportunity to discuss maybe intergroup and intergenerational frustration and disappointment? It's no doubt that queer and trans folk are not a monolith. There are plenty of gays and lesbians who are more than happy to section themselves off from the rest of the community because they have been able to create their own community while fostering anti-trans, misogynistic rhetoric, and anti-intellectual rhetoric. We can see this individually in anti-trans groups like LGBT Alliance. You can use, say, this game as an opportunity to create a bar or organization where maybe the clientele are of a more particular, say, leftist alignment. Or maybe you have a scenario where Say some of the clientele gets into a debate or a argument with some of the transphobic members of, say, a fictional group in this world. This could also just be a love letter to the power of queer community, especially in online spaces. I'm sure all of you who are watching this know a queer or trans person who has benefited greatly from online spaces, whether it be from Discord or whether it be on, say, Blue Sky, or even if it is another social media platform, how online spaces, whether it be blogospheres or whether it be a website, allow for people to explore their sexuality, gender, their art, their community building, and other aspects of who they are. Online spaces give not only accessibility to those who have been opted out of the conversation, but it also paves the way for people who have not been able to physically go to a bar or to a bookstore or to a cafe. Or it can simply be a cathartic moment between you and a whole bunch of other queer folk who want to make a space where you feel safe. Viva La Queer Bar is endearing. It can be about the fiery rage and grief of queer spaces of the past or present. It can be a chill time with your friends as you eat some popcorn and M&Ms and laugh about the funny little queer folk that you've created in your D&D game. It could be an exploration of, say, hardship, such as drug abuse or misogyny or internalized hate. Or the bar or the queer third space can be a coming of age story about a group of people that learn a little bit about themselves in a scary world. While the content, its mechanics, and questions are focused, the game is able to tell such wildly complex stories. It's a beautiful reminder of how important community is, that no community, especially if in queer and trans spaces, are the same. Finally, that to know that there is a space where you and the people you love dearly are waiting for you is something that all of us want, especially when the world is so keen on wanting to erase you. Queer third spaces like bars and cafes and others, I think, are necessary and extremely vital. Viva La Queer Bar reminds us in its pages that the places we call home can be created and reflected on, no matter where our pride and joy take us. And I know that was super cheesy, but if you want even a more cheesy, queer-oriented video, then check out this video on Moonlight on Roosevelt Beach, where I talk about an amazing game set in 1980s lovely ocean town, Roosevelt Beach. And once you're done watching that, feel free to like and subscribe because all that support is super useful. Last but not least, a special shout out to my Patreon supporters, Harrison Parker and Logan, for the continued support. You too can support me over on Patreon over on here, and you can check out my coffee over there. And last but not least, I'm your average everyday queer third space enjoyer, I guess. And I hope you all have an awesome day. And happy Pride Month. Ciao.